Thanks, Ken. As you mentioned, I'm with NESN, and we've got a really great opportunity in the next 30 minutes to do some pretty quick looks at both replay and what replay systems are starting to force decisions on with trucks and facilities. There'll be three topics we're going to address. The first is cost containment models, using replays as a pivot point for affordable productions, whether it's an at-home REMI model or how to repurpose content. They'll walk through a little bit who's doing what at the regional and at the national sports level. The second is volume. There's a new issue coming up of the volume of sources and what will need to change because of the volume of sources. You might be very surprised at where some people are at. And then the third deals with what you heard a bit about earlier, 4K versus 1080p UHD, and a bit of a crossroads that our panelists see us at and some decisions as an industry we need to make. So Ray and Peter, welcome. Ray is with Game Creek as the EVS project manager. Peter is with Mobile TV Group, director of engineering. Suffice to say, they see things a little bit differently because of who their clients are. So we'll start with Ray. How are we going to deliver so many replay sources and faster?
Well, it's about, making sure that we have all the content recorded and ready to come back. The national level of shows, they're adding more and more cameras, and they will want those available immediately, so they end up adding more boxes. They end up adding more channels. The channel density gets more and more, as you all know. So to avoid missing anything, they add those. They might not have an operator on them. That might just be just a record box, but they'll add it so that they have access to it.
Peter, are you still seeing people trying to do melts, or is that going away?
They're still trying to do melts. I think change is tough, but I've kind of made it my mission to eliminate the melts, right? Everything's about cost cutting, and one thing that we're always hearing from our clients is cut down on overtime costs. We can't have the replay ops sitting, holding up the strike of the truck at the end of the night for an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. Let's find a way to make it faster. And I think the technology has been there for a while to melt during the game, but now we're starting to finally see the last piece of the puzzle, which is connectivity to the venues, where it's possible to do it during the game, and then the game's done, and we can walk away.
And how are you guys adjusting to that with Fox as one of your main clients? What does that look like for the next year or two?
So we're seeing several of our clients put in 1 gig connections to the venues that they go to often, where we can connect up to the truck with a primary and a redundant path, 1 gig connection directly back to their facility, and the transmission, returns, phone lines, EVS network is all connected down that. So now I can see in the future that the replay will be an extension of a studio, or even the whole truck will be an extension of the studio. So anything that we have available in the truck that we're recording, the studio has instant ability to pull that back and edit it for whatever they would like something for their website or a pre or post game show. So the connectivity is starting to happen.
Ray, one of your clients is CBS. How are they looking to do things with football?
They have implemented systems where they almost completely eliminated the melt. They use connectivity at all the venues, and they've put hardware in place to transfer all of the content off. So every clip that's created, they're transferring off and have a central monitoring station to manage all of that. So they're eliminating the melt. Fox does something similar on their football shows. It eliminates costs. It helps to avoid some shipping. It increases costs on connectivity. There's always that push and pull. You don't get something for free, but it has allowed them to allow their creative people to be a little more creative, have time to develop things. They can send new versions of things, and it saves the people in the truck from having to do all that extra work, or even they don't have to concentrate on that. It's fixed and then re-delivered.
And then you are also working with ESPN on a bit of a hybrid of how they're running the replays of the servers, the record sources. Would you walk us through what that looks like for?
So ESPN has the Grammy model, which they found that with their old Remy model that production and the talent were separated, and that didn't work out as well, and they wanted a discount on the truck, and we have all these resources in the truck that aren't used. But now they've sort of switched gears where production is in the truck, talent is there on site, and that helps to facilitate a better storytelling. But they're using replay devices in the truck remotely. Setting up a KVM system that connects back to their home in Bristol and have operators in the studios.
In addition to some in the truck.
In addition, there are a couple of people in the truck that help set up the room, help configure the servers if they need to be changed, but most of the operators are back in Bristol, and it's working pretty well.
Peter, where do you see this going with some of the people being back at the hub, some people being in the truck? Are we going to move to a place where it's all back at the hub? Or is there no large benefit? You always want to do kind of what ESPN is, which is keep somebody on site? Or is there a connectivity problem to solve?
I think if you're going to move everybody, back to a hub, then you open up other potential issues with, now you have to get all those signals back to that hub. All the cameras that you want to record. I think as the connectivity increases, that model will improve. But I see really for the foreseeable future that the operators will be on site. I think as long as the producer and director are on site, that they definitely want their lead operators on site also. There's a lot of collaboration that goes on inside the truck before, during, and after a game that can't be reproduced if they're far away.
So it seems like one of the challenges is also the number of sources that you're recording for replay, which is not just the cameras that the truck brings with it, right? So in the 80s, a lot of people know CBS was doing NFL games with 5 cameras and 3 replays. And now a lot of trucks, after it was Foxified in the 90s, they went to 9 or 12 cameras and almost as many replays. Where are we at right now on the average? Let's start maybe, Peter, on the regional side. Where are we at on the average number of sources? Forget just your cameras, but all the other sources that you're trying to record for replay on a typical regional game. Sure.
On a typical regional game, we're seeing between 25 and 35 sources come into the truck. And you start thinking about it, and you're like, well, we only have maybe 4 replay operators. How do you record all those? And you don't. You can't. But now that everything's HD, finally everybody's caught up, all the venues have caught up to HD, the thinking is to bring in everything so everything is available if we need it. But we can't record it all. And the replay ops, they do some tricks, like cut in things to certain channels at certain times during the game to try to manage that. But it's gotten to be a lot to manage, and we have to have all the infrastructure in the trucks to be able to handle that with frame syncs and DAs and routing, and then a limitation has been the number of channels that we have available in the truck to record at one time.
And that's massive, 30 sources for a regional game. Yeah. And obviously there's the cameras, there's a scoreboard feed, visitor truck, but then there are things like the mat and fill for MLB's pitch zone, stuff like that. Then you move to the national show, which years ago it was, wow, the national guys they're rolling on 30 things. What are your national shows looking like now, Ray?
They're, taking those 30 sources on a football game, but they're actually recording all of them. In golf, we do Fox Golf, and they actually record all of it. They have set up, we've built a system that records 110 sources, and not all those are operator run. Those are set up as just ISO record machines, but they can go grab it. It also opens up using different tools. It's not necessarily an operator sitting in front of one machine focusing on 4 or 6 sources. You have another person that can look at a palette of sources. You know, you're looking at 30 or 40 sources with a different product that allows you to select from multiple machines. So it opens up a creative ability for them to tell a story better that they didn't have a couple of years ago.
So is there a need then for a software type solution the way you have in cameras, that you can convert a camera through software, the switcher? Where are we at? Because I think that if you said to the average region, you know, we're going to come up with a 30 record system solution and that's your bottom game, I mean, that's still a tremendous volume. And again, it seems almost ridiculous, but if you add in POVs and official reviews, I mean, what team wants to not be recording a replay that could have decided the outcome of the game on their behalf, right? But at some point, are you just putting all new hardware in, or are you looking for the manufacturers to do something differently?
You know, we're on this cusp of 2110 and the IP infrastructure. You know, the corporate world, you know, IBMs and Oracles, you know, they've been doing, you know, software-defined networking for a couple of years, and they've done this commodity hardware. So if we have some commodity hardware or something that is hardware-based but can be flexible, one day it can be recording 20 things, or the next day it's a mixture of a record and playback, or it's a transcoder next week. That's something that starts to open up other possibilities for us. We're always concerned with money, weight, and heat, right, in a truck. So if we can reduce all 3 of those things, it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, that's money and weight are my 2 big concerns. Interoperability. Some of you guys are using, you know, dynos or dream catchers in addition to EVSs. Does that need to be solved now? Are we okay? What do you think, Peter?
I think we figured out workarounds for all that, for a dyno to be able to talk to an EVS or a dream catcher. It's not as smooth as we would like it. You know, I think better cooperation with that would be helpful, because different systems have different strengths, right? And having that option is a good thing, I think. But like I said, we've figured it out. We know how to do it. We can get several of our trucks have dynos for super slow motion, which we can get to an EVS and import and use that clip. So it just needs to be a little smoother.
But it still begs a challenge on a side-by-side or a triple or a
Sure.
3-way, where you're going to have somebody show up that doesn't have the same complement. Can you still connect them, or are there more challenges there?
There's more challenges there. I think ultimately, especially with the venues, they would like to see that interoperability better, because where they can just connect to us and have access to the network, and vice versa, where we can get their clips off. That'll solve a lot of the number of record channels that we need with the 25 sources. Because if we have, let's say the stadium has 8 cameras and we want to bring those in, why should we bring those in and record them? Why can't we just go into their servers and grab them instead of using all our resources to do that? I think some improvement in that area would be great.
And Ray, you've got ESPN as a client. They went with Quantel years ago. You've got things like Thursday Night Football. What does it look like to integrate a client with a different platform like the Quantel platform and all the things you've got in your trucks?
Well, really what it comes down to is just changing file. It moves. We've moved away from, we've gone from tape to hard drives to file based. Now it's still a challenge, but it's one that in the past couple of years has not become that difficult. we have the X-File 3 that has built-in transcoding. That sort of was a huge hurdle that everybody was able to get over. And really, it's just about, okay, when I need to deliver a file back to Bristol or back to LA for Fox or Charlotte or whoever, it's okay, what profile do I need? Let's build it, we send the file, and then we're in good shape. It's become less of an issue now than it was a couple of years ago, but it's still going to be a challenge as clients adjust with their codecs and just making sure that we deliver the correct thing at the correct time.
Well, and it seems like the challenge would be not just getting that codec back to the hub, but a side-by-side or three-way, you could end up with a truck needing to pull, a visitor truck or the other broadcast needing to pull out of Bristol's Quantel system through your truck, right?
Correct.
So that yet is another wrinkle to how that works in the reverse direction if more content is hubbed in a platform somewhere else.
Yeah, and that's, the interoperability is going to be a huge thing. With IP-based video, and we have, standards with which we're building on, then it becomes less of an issue. It's still a couple of years ahead. Now we're SDI, right? So we have, cameras from one manufacturer, a switcher from another manufacturer, and a router from a third manufacturer, but they all talk together.
Right.
So the standard for IP is going to be key for us, and just the biggest thing that this is going to come down to is just people understanding how to make this work.
Sure. Switching a little bit to Supermo, because not only does it look cool, but a lot of times those cameras can bring a definitive look to what happened in a play and can change the outcome. Peter, how are you guys approaching number of Supermos that you have as a group and number per truck? How's that look, and where's the future for Supermo with you guys?
Yeah, I think we're definitely an early adopter of Supermo technology, and we've got I think around 40 in the fleet right now. All of our major trucks have at least 2, but our new standard is 4 per truck. I think that's added a lot to the broadcasts. And being able to get instant access to that, where we know the early days of Supermo technology was, with the old Vision Research cameras and bringing it in, recording it, playing it back off the camera head. We've now been able to integrate Supermo technology directly from the server, and it's quick, because it's the name of the game. They want things to happen quick in the replay room, and there's no delay, there's no waiting. It's become expected to have all those replay angles, the critical replay angles with Supermo.
Ray, you guys are a Sony house and did push the envelope a little bit with the World Series, ended up at a 16-time Supermo. How did it work? Where was it used? What are you guys doing with Supermo when you're going to 16X?
So Supermo at 16X is an interesting beast. It's almost 1,000 frames. It's in a for a while we've been able to do that with the Phantom cameras, but it doesn't integrate well with the truck. It's just extra work to try and do it in and get it integrated. The Sony integrates better with the truck. And we're using it in specialty formats. We used it at the Tight Center at the World Series to get the batter and get the pitcher. We were able to show some things with how the different pitchers would pitch and how the ball would roll off their fingers, which is a really cool look. We use the Sony server, and so it's a unique challenge to get it to integrate into our normal workflow.
And baseball has those gaps where you have a little bit more time for a replay, but I'm kind of curious, Peter, for you guys who aren't in the 16 times yet, do you have enough time to run that long of a replay? Or have you found there's more of a sweet spot for Supermo beyond which it just takes too long?
We briefly experimented with doing six times cameras on a broadcast, and what we found was that was too much.
Too much in what way?
Too much is if you have a slow-mo replay, a slow-mo replay, a slow-mo replay, because that replay is taking 6 times as long to play back. So where you're accustomed to doing 3 different looks in one replay, now that's a lot longer. We found that 4 is the sweet spot for that.
What about with the NFL, Ray?
NFL is they're on the Fox show. We're using 5 Supermos of varying speeds, and it can be long if the operator is not judicious in how they show that replay. So it comes down to humans again and decision making. The director has to be able to trust what the replay operators are doing with that replay, but it's Supremo's not going away, and we just have to, they're going to be better at operating and using those tools that they have available. Just because you have it doesn't mean you should at that time.
So speaking of just because you have it, people have 4K TV sets. There's not a massive 4K distribution model outside of one of the satellite providers. It seems like one of the holdups is replay because of the number of channels you need. Where do we stand with 4K replay, Peter?
So the vast majority of the 4K replay we do now is in 1080p, just to get to the number of channels that we require. When you talk about the new technologies with 4K, everybody wants to use their same workflow. They don't want anything to really change in their world. So the talk of going from taking a 12-channel EVS and saying it's 2 in, 2 out is a non-starter for most production crews. So to get around that, we do 1080p, which gets us the normal amount of channels back, and then we upconvert that to UHD.
And then Ray, you guys do a weekly MLB show with 4K, is that right?
We do. It's 4K cameras and 1080p replay. It's right now 4K replay is tough. We need, like we talked earlier about having the high number of cameras and the low number of replay channels. We're in that same situation with 4K.
So how far away, I'll start with Peter, how far away are we from having a truck that can record all the sources in 4K?
Oh, I think we're probably within a year or two here. I think a lot of it will have to do with how much money we want to spend, right? We can do it today.
Yeah.
You just need more servers, more operators. So I think over time that the manufacturers will catch up with the increasing the number of channels, which will allow us to get back to where we are at. I don't know how quickly that's going to happen, but I have a feeling the next year or two that we'll be there.
So Ray, how far away do you think we are from that, or is 1080p HDR going to jump in first and slide 4K backward?
It kind of depends. What we're hearing from manufacturers with the 2110, 4K could be a reality very soon, but we're hearing a lot from our clients. 1080p HDR is something they want to explore and are trying to do and see how far they can push that. And I think it really depends on how much money people are willing to spend, which obviously budgets are always getting cut short. But in the next year or two, what happens with 2110 and the IP connectivity, the hardware starts to look a little different. And 4K HDR might take over, it might not. But I think we're looking at a world that's either 1080p or 4K, and it's nobody wants to make a big jump yet because we just don't know yet.
Sure. So I want to open it to the room. I've got a couple more questions I can ask, but we've got about 5 minutes left. Any questions you'd like to ask our panel relative to replay or the pivot points that replay creates with the truck, the business model, the workflow, especially at home? All you brave souls. Yep.
How much automated cycle
He's asking how much automated workflow are you seeing or using smart folders as part of that?
We do quite a bit of that. During NFL with Fox, we're doing almost all of it is some sort of drop folder. It's scanning and it just shows up on the server, or if they hit an archive flag, it automatically goes back. During golf, we do even more of that. That's an area that's just going to continue to grow.
What size pipe are you using for that connectivity to Fox?
Minimum of 500 megabit, sometimes a gig. So.
That answer your question? Great. Anybody else? Other thoughts or questions? How much has instant replay played into your world and the level of importance it plays in the game and in the truck?
I think it's integral part, especially with the super slow motion that we've played. Everybody has come to really expect that and be able to see an angle with that high frame rate playback, to be able to see if that player is in or out, over a line or like that. It's become an expectation. Versus with the traditional replay, you could never quite tell were they in or were they not. And with how tight the games are called these days, and right with the rules, and with everybody watching, it's become incredibly important to have those looks.
I'll add into that. My 10-year-old looks at me and says, "Dad, where's the other angle?" Why can't they show? There's got to be a better look, and he even understands this. And it's not about the hardware. It's not about the tools. It's about the look. It's about how do we see exactly what happened, and as much money is involved with the leagues, and as high stakes as the broadcasts are, to get that right and to make sure that the call is done correctly, it has become more important. These broadcasts are 50% or more replay, and having that, not having that in a very important call is a huge no-no. Sometimes we can't catch all of it, but we do everything we can to have it.
Does the financial burden for that ability to get the calls right ever shift from the broadcaster to the leagues? So, for example, who looks bad? Does CBS look bad if they get the call wrong, or does the NFL look bad if they get the call wrong?
That's a great question. I think it depends. I think it depends on the situation. In the control rooms that I've been in, we show everything that we have available, and if there's a continuing trend of something missed multiple times, then I think the NFL might put pressure on the broadcasters to add something. But it's these games are covered very, very well, and you show them everything you have. You don't hold back, and if they need something, then they can ask for it.
Peter, though, I would assume that at the regional level, with an owner having control ultimately over who's going to get rights, not recording one of those 30 sources that decides the outcome of their game.
Yeah, I think there's been certain redundancies that have been added over the years where, I think the leagues know that the truck's not going to get every single angle at every time. So, over the years, there's been a lot of investment made in the control rooms locally at all the venues, and they're all recording all that, and the league has all access to that. And even a few places, the leagues will install their own cameras. The leagues have their cameras. The stadium or venue has their control room or has their cameras, and the truck has their cameras. The likelihood of one of the three of us catching it is pretty high, and then from there you get into the where they zoomed in far enough to see the foot in or out. So.
Great. One last question, and then we'll be out of time. Go ahead.
As the technology evolves, and we see more stuff coming. We've obviously gone through several changes in the last few years very quickly. Are we going to see
in these? Oh, well, thank you. Are we going to see in these tape rooms changes in the human interface devices? You know, we've seen a lot of, we went from concentric dials to joystick. Now we've got the joystick and the keyboard. Any new things that you're seeing coming over the horizon in that human interface regard?
Absolutely, we already are. It used to be a interface. You would have a controller, and then you would have some sort of screen that was kind of static. Now you're sort of joining that human touch interaction with the screen, and starting to see touch panels or mouse clicks, and that human interface starts to bring out more of the information of what's on the server. You'll start seeing metadata with those clips. You start seeing the ability to see thumbnails of those clips instead of just a clip name and a location. I think in the next few years you will start seeing more and more of that, where the human interface morphs a whole lot more than it has in the past several years.
And yet, Peter, the DOS screen that some replay guys still love.
They do. The reason they love it is because of speed. And I think while everybody's used to tablets and phones and swiping, and that's becoming much more common, people are getting more comfortable and faster with it. The good old DOS screen with a keyboard up and down is extremely fast. So I think the challenge for the manufacturers are going to be to introduce more touch screen and swiping and all that to get you more information, because I think information is critically important to know a thumbnail of that clip, to see all the information on that clip with the metadata, but to make sure that that is readily accessible, extremely quick is with the speed they're accustomed to today.
I'd like to thank both Ray and Peter for this past half hour.